Hello and welcome to Odds Premier League match day 25. Some good bets came in last weekend. We still have, of course, the three best teams in England winning: Arsenal, Liverpool and Man City. The race to the Premier League title continues, and we have Tom Rennie with us. Hello, Tom. All good?
Yeah, I'm good. I was reasonably pleased about last week. I think 5 out of 10 came in. The ACCA failed on Villa, which was annoying. The safe bet did come in, and a few secondary bets did come in on the first bets that didn't work. So I only got 3 games completely wrong, 5 fully right, and 2 sort of right. So I was quite happy with that.
Was a kind of a surprise. Man United winning at Villa Park. Now Man United, they are also in the race to finish in the top 4. So let's jump into this week's games. Of course, press the like, subscribe, support us, give us some love. And now let's go on with the show. And the first game, Tom, I think is going to be fun to watch, and I expect plenty of goals. I'm talking about Brentford, Liverpool, because Liverpool also was very leaky against Burnley. Burnley had so many chances at Anfield. This is not that common, and this could be a tricky game for Liverpool. Brentford beat Wolves away again with Ivan Toney making the difference, and Brentford in their games we usually see also plenty of goals. So do you also expect a good rock and roll here?
Yeah, I do actually, and I think you're right to predict a fun, entertaining game. The issue for me is that Brentford had that lovely little run of scoring goals in recent games, which came to an end against in the last couple of games against Tottenham and against Man City, scoring goals, but going on to lose those games. And what their issue is, I think, and I think Thomas Frank has identified this, and we saw it last week in the game against Wolves, is that defensively they've got to be better. They have to be better. They nicked 2 goals last week in that 2-0 win against Wolves. They absolutely had to win that game, and they did. And Ivan Toney scoring in that game, again, really impressive for Brentford. It was a game, we spoke about it last week. They had to win it. I picked Wolves. Brentford won it because Brentford, when they need a result, like 1 or 2 other teams in the league, they always find a way to get one. So I was really impressed with that. But I do think that was such an important result for Brentford. I can see there being another form dip here. I see this being very similar to the Manchester City game. And if you take away that ridiculous goal that Neil Maupay scored, Brentford did not get through on City at all. The way they create chances requires the opposition to spit up chances to you. And I just don't see Liverpool doing that in this particular frame of mind, the way they played in recent weeks, scoring so many goals right now. 4 against Newcastle, 4 against Bournemouth, 4 against Chelsea, and another 3 against Burnley last time out. And I think that even with the injuries that Liverpool have currently, no Trent Alexander-Arnold, we don't know, sadly, at the moment about Connor Bradley, who was his kind of understudy for a couple of weeks, whether he's going to be available or not. We still don't know whether Mo Salah is returned to the squad as yet. No Szoboszlai, no Thiago, made his comeback against Arsenal, injured immediately. So it's a tricky market, this one. I am tempted by both teams to score. I really am, because of Brentford's goal-scoring abilities and Liverpool's outscoring abilities. What concerns me is Liverpool's away form. And what concerns me is the amount of times this season I've come on here and gone, big Liverpool win, -2 handicap. And so looking at similar markets, Liverpool to win this game without conceding, the exact opposite of my instinct, leads me to 3.25, a double your money bet. Now, I know that's wild, but we are in that bit of the season here where things are going to get tighter. Things are going to get more professional. The finish line is in sight. And I wonder if we get a few less kind of harem-scarum results for Liverpool at home and away from home, a touch more professional. I actually think this is going to be entertaining, but not as goal-packed as we predict now. So Liverpool win to 0 is 3.25. Otherwise, look at the group betting, 1-0, 2-0, 2-1 scoreline. Go Liverpool either way. But I just don't have that confidence in both teams to score to put it in my top 2.
Massive game for Liverpool. They have to win to stay on the top. Both teams to score is only 1.6. Most of our audience are going for the obvious thing, which is Liverpool to win, and both teams to score. But Tom just gave you the option for Liverpool to win 2-0. Marco is also going for draw at halftime. Let's see if Liverpool don't make the mistakes they committed against Burnley defensively. Burnley playing at home at Turf Moor against Arsenal, and Arsenal destroyed West Ham, Tom, with a 6-0 away after beating Liverpool, so they are keeping the pace. Burnley, they are very bad when they play at home. When they play, let's leave it like that, it's 4 defeats and 2 draws in the last 6 games, so I can understand why these low odds for Arsenal to win.
Yeah, look, I mean, Burnley are going to get relegated. They do not have enough points. They do not have enough ability in their squad to get enough points from this point. And at home this season, it's one of the worst home records in Premier League history. 1 victory in 12 games, 2 draws and 9 defeats, 13 goals scored. Look, everyone likes Vincent Kompany. There's some really likable players on this team. It's great to see Fofana going there and scoring some goals. So those are caveats there. So don't at me, Burnley fans. But Burnley have been an embarrassment. They've been pathetic. They have no business being in the Premier League. And the sooner they are relegated this season, the better for them and for us. So we can not talk about this because they've soiled themselves on the greatest stage in domestic football. So, look, nothing else to say on Burnley, really. The only question here is how many Arsenal win by. Last week was really interesting. We got it absolutely right, by the way. So if you followed our tips last week, you made money on Arsenal last week. There was no way West Ham were going to score in that game. We went Arsenal to win 2-0 as opposed to a goal handicap. And the reason we didn't do handicap last week is because the away form has been a little bit good, but not like wildly good. They've not been thrashing teams. So it was an outlier last week. I don't expect that to happen again. In fact, it was West Ham's biggest home loss since 1968 and equaled their biggest home loss ever. So a real rarity that result happened. I don't think Arsenal were 6-0 good. I do think West Ham were 6-0 lost bad. And that's kind of what led to it. So look, Arsenal to win. Various ways you do this. I'm a bit cautious of 2-0. Only because in recent away games, they have conceded some poor goals, Arsenal. And I do like Fofana up front for Burnley. That gives me a little bit of hope, though I still think it's going to be like 3-0. But I've picked out a -2 handicap. A -2 handicap brings me at 3.5. It's over double your money. It's a 3-0 victory. That's what I'm looking at here. And then from that point, you can start adding your extras. Will they get over 6 corners? They did last week. I think they will this week. You can pick a goal scorer. Personally, I'm looking at a fit Bukayo Saka to be amongst the goal scorers. Pick one scorer and an Arsenal win. That brings you over double your money. But personally, I'm looking at a 3-0 or above scoreline. And so work your variance of that.
Well, they have Porto the following week in the Champions League, so perhaps also if they are 2-0 ahead or something like this, they relax a little bit. They have to start thinking about the Champions League. Very important. Marco is going for Arsenal to win and over 2.5 goals. Keep it simple. Arsenal to win. The odds are very low, as we can expect. And Jobs is going for Arsenal -4. This has been very optimistic, going for such a handicap. Very low odds for Arsenal to win. This is normal. Next game is very tricky. Fulham, Aston Villa, because Fulham is not an easy team to predict. Beat Bournemouth in a game that screamed draw, but it was a 3-1 victory after 2 consecutive draws. And Aston Villa, we can say they are in bad form. Lost back-to-back games in Villa Park against Man United and in the FA Cup, but then last game away was a 5-0 victory against Sheffield United. Okay, Sheffield United is not going to happen with Fulham, but I'm not sure what to do in this game, Tom. And screams draw again?
Oh, I don't know. And the reason I don't know is because I think I personally, and we as a kind of sports commentator industry, have undervalued Fulham. I think we have undervalued Fulham's qualities at Craven Cottage this season. To see 3.10 for a Fulham home win is extraordinary to me. They have won 7 home games this season. That is not nothing. That is more than Brighton. It's more than West Ham. It's more than Chelsea. It's more than Wolves. It's more than Brentford. It's really good. It's only 2 less than Tottenham. It's only 2 less than Arsenal have won at home this season. To have 3.10 on a home record like that is wild. That's wild to me. And look, I've got some tips here. I'm taking that. 3.10, double your money for Fulham to win at home with their home record. Take it. There's your top tip done already. Really impressed by Fulham, I've got to say. I didn't think much of them, as I've mentioned already. Muniz scoring goals. Really impressed by him last week against Bournemouth, keeping Armando Broja out of the team, who they've signed from Chelsea. Raul Jimenez came in, scored a couple of goals, upset the apple cart a bit. We didn't think much of him, and then suddenly scoring goals again. Impressive, out with the hamstring this week. But suddenly Fulham have gone from no strikers to 3 strikers, 2 of whom are fit, and one of them is scoring. So loads of positives there about Fulham. I think in midfield, Tom Kearney's maybe had his first ever good Premier League season. Willian's Indian summer has resumed after a tough kind of 6 months at the start of this season. So loads of positives about them. And I fancy them to win. With Aston Villa, it's evident now that a very small squad has been tested to its absolute limit. And they didn't reinforce particularly well in January, joined the club. Esri Konsa, Boubacar Kamara, both missing, really significant players in recent times. Konsa has played, I think, every game nearly this season. So to lose him is significant. To lose Kamara in midfield loses the balance of him and Douglas Luiz and John McGinn as a trio. And it's interesting, too, how much Leon Bailey is playing right now as well. Bailey playing and Diaby kind of coming off the bench. Not sure what that says about how good Leon Bailey has been, which is fine, and what's happened to Moussa Diaby. You sign a £50 million player. I don't expect him to be on the bench behind Leon Bailey. So it's an interesting one, this. I'm not convinced by Villa's form. I'm not convinced by Villa's away form this season, even though they did win their last away game against Sheffield United. That was a kind of nothing result because they're so bad. The Brentford result was impressive, but against Man U, against Everton, I wasn't impressed. And so for Fulham's home form and that 3.10 there, take Fulham to win, I'd also be looking here at a similar performance and result to the Bournemouth game last week. Both teams to score brings you up to 5 as well. So a 2-1 victory for Fulham brings you in at 5. That's 4-1. That's mental. I'm taking it.
Well, Duncan is also adding to the mix Andres Pereira to score or assist, and on the both teams to score. And there is plenty of value in Fulham to win, Fulham double chance. This one is a tricky game to predict, but of course, the odds gave us very good value on Fulham. Next game, Tom, Newcastle. Bournemouth here, we have Newcastle really favorite, 1.88 for them to win, and they are in good form, getting closer and closer to the European spots now that they are not playing European football. Scored 10 goals in the last 3 games, whereas Bournemouth, they lost to Fulham in the last game. Perhaps we see also a lot of goals in this one.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It does scream goals, this particular game, and Newcastle are getting really difficult to predict because most of the season, up till mid-January, the winter break, whatever, they were winning every single home game and couldn't win away. And now they've won 2 in a row away from home and haven't won in 3 at home. What is a tipster supposed to do? The form tells you absolutely nothing about Newcastle United, so it's tricky. And I'm not going to guarantee this one. There's some this week that I'll guarantee will come in. This one, I don't know. Look, Newcastle, no Wilson, no Murphy, no Isak, no Joelinton, no Pope, no Willock, no Anderson, no Target, right? That's significant. Wow. It's still a long injury list, and they've done well to not have this season be a total write-off. They probably would have been Champions League contenders if not for the ridiculous injury list they've had. For Bournemouth even, Tyler Adams being missing all season remains very significant for them. He would have been a great player for them, so that's a huge loss. My line here is that I think Newcastle have turned a corner. I think Bruno Guimaraes put in his performance of the season against Nottingham Forest last week. I think with Anthony Gordon being fit, even though they lied to us last week and told us he wasn't, the balance of the front line still looks good. And I think Newcastle at home continue to be a tough proposition despite recent performances. The Luton game is a bit of an outlier. The Nottingham Forest game was at their lowest point of the season, and Man City's Man City. They probably should have got something from that game. So Newcastle's still in the macro good at home. And for Bournemouth, look, I have been impressed by Bournemouth, right? We've all been impressed by Bournemouth. But I would say I went to the West Ham game recently where they drew 1-1. And West Ham were pretty atrocious. West Ham are having a bad time right now, bad 6-7 game run, and didn't beat them. And apart from Calvin Phillips being Bournemouth's best midfielder that day, they didn't really create too much. A couple of late chances into the first half. Semenyo had one save from Areola, but second half they created nothing. And I just wonder whether Bournemouth have reached a plateau. And their away form is 1 point in the last 3. That away run has come to an end. You've got to look Newcastle win here. The run of results suggests Bournemouth can score one. They've scored in each of their last 5 away games. Newcastle have scored in all their recent home games. So pick Newcastle to win, take both teams to score. That brings you to double your money, and that's what we're always looking for.
Yeah, Tyson going for both teams to score as well. Mam Spaghetti, Newcastle -1, Newcastle to win, and over 3.5 goals. That's a lot of goals going for
Bold.
that line. Salenki to score or assist. By the way, assistant manager of Bournemouth in Iraola's team just left to your favorite team in Spain, Tom, to Rayo Vallecano, where Iraola was coming from.
Wants to go home.
They were very happy with Iraola, so now they hired the assistant manager. Let's see if Newcastle can challenge for the European spots. They are still far away, but they are in a good run. Talking about negative runs, we have to talk about Nottingham Forest and West Ham. What a game this one. We can see it in the odds, very high odds. Forest favorites, but still I won't touch them. It's only 1 point in the last 4 games, and for West Ham, Tom, conceded 9 in the last 2 games.
Yeah, look, I think Nottingham Forest, I did their game against Newcastle last week, and they can score goals. And in the end, that is what saves you in the Premier League, right? Being able to outscore the opponent, to take that brave chance, play the progressive pass. When you get played through, take it when it comes. Taiwo Awoniyi looks rusty, but I think with every passing game, he looks slightly better. I was really impressed by Callum Hudson-Odoi. I was really impressed by Morgan Gibbs-White. I was really impressed by 1 or 2 others at Nottingham Forest. They played well last week against Newcastle, but they will concede a lot of goals because defensively they haven't been strong enough. The AFCON players are back. That's like 7 players in Forest squad, so that'll make a big difference to them. And I think they're understandably favourites here because West Ham have shown in recent times they will wilt. Only 3 wins this season at home, Forest. That's their big issue, winning games like this, 4 defeats in their last 5. But I understand why people fancy them here. And the odds are like this because no one in their right mind is betting on West Ham this week. The performance last week, and it's not too dissimilar to what we predicted, right? We thought they would lose. We thought they wouldn't create a chance. And we thought they would lose without conceding. It came in. But even we, as good at predicting these things as we are, didn't see that. And I think West Ham's issues right now are so vast. Not reinforcing in January was dumb. If you think about the last 6 months, potential creative players in this team, and we can say they're past their best, and we can say they weren't good enough. Manuel Lanzini, Pablo Fornals, and Said Benrahma. This time last year, one of those or all of those could have come into the team to bring some creativity in the absence of Paqueta. They all got sold, and nobody came in. And so they have players like Thomas Souček, statistically across European football, plays the least amount of forward passes of any midfielder. He doesn't pass forwards. James Ward-Prowse doesn't really pass forwards. Edson Alvarez doesn't really pass forwards. So obviously you can't get forward because your midfield can't break the lines into anyone in those roles. It's really weird what's happened to West Ham because they've lost 1 player. And defensively too, Kurt Zouma cannot play in this game. He needs to retire. His knees have gone. He cannot run. Everyone's seen it. Uncle Angelo Ogbonna has to come in. And Naya Forget, he's been off with Morocco. He's not a good enough defender. You've got to bring in, unfortunately, I don't rate him either, Mavropanos. 2 defenders got to change. You've got to play someone like Max Cornet. I know Moyes hates him, but he's got to play him. You can't play the right back on left wing. That's really just so stupid. And even Danny Ings. I don't like Danny Ings, but he is a striker and he's what you've got, so he's got to play. So I would like to see West Ham make 7 or 8 changes from the team who humiliated the club last week. I'd like to see Calvin Phillips' contract cancelled and sent back to Man City, where they can metaphorically fatten him up because literally it's already happened, and send him out to someone else because he's got no business playing for West Ham. But I think Moyes will probably play quite a similar team, a similar game plan, try and nick a win. It won't happen. Forest win, take it. Forest win without West Ham scoring. Take that. If you take a 1-0, 2-0, 3-0 Forest win, it's 4.5. Forest to win to 0 and West Ham can't score a goal. It's easy money.
Well, there is some confidence also on the draw. It's 3.6 for Marco, even for Viper. Draw could come here. Kudos to score. Is in the minds of West Ham bosses to sack Moyes?
He won't get sacked. He's going to be there until the end of this season because his contract runs until then, and there's really no urgency to take that decision, right? If you're in the bottom 3, then yeah, this is the time you might do a desperate Hail Mary. But right now, there is no reason to sack him. In the macro of it all, it's still been a pretty good season. They'll probably finish 10th or above. But in the micro of it, they haven't won in 7. They've just got beaten 6-0, their biggest ever home defeat in league history. And the way they play football, I've said this to you loads of times. When they win, you can stomach it. When they lose, it looks really bad. And when they get thrashed, it's an abomination.
Let's see how they perform also in the Europa League. Remember that they topped their group. So
could win it.
Yeah, they could win it. Why not? Next game, Tottenham Wolves. Tottenham in the top 4 thanks to the late winner against Brighton. They were a bit lucky in that game because they conceded so many chances. And at the end, they won it. It's 5 consecutive home wins, all of them with both teams to score, and having in front Wolves, a team also that lately we are seeing a lot of goals. Perhaps this is another one. Tottenham to win and both teams to score. Why not?
This one screams goals. It screams goals. I cannot wait to watch this game of football. If you're going to pick anything out this weekend to watch and enjoy, it's got to be this one. Wolverhampton Wanderers in recent times away from home. 4 goals, was it, against Chelsea? Terrific performance there. 4 goals against Brentford away from home. Yes, there's a 0-0 sandwich in the middle of those, but to have scored 18 goals away from home this season, and 8 of them have come in the last 3 away games, you can sense a sea change in tactics for Gary O'Neill's side. And for Tottenham, 26 goals scored at home this season. They've scored, 25 goals scored at home this season. Loads of goals scored home and away. And keep scoring late goals as well, really impressively. Is it 3 of the last 11? They have scored winners in additional time. They continue to go for goals all the way through. No significant injuries for Tottenham. For Wolves, do not have Mateus Cunha is pretty massive. Hwang Hee-chan remains out, but they've got Pedro Neto, who annoyingly they've got to sell for FFP because FFP is working great. So look, how's this game going to go? Well, you've got to look at goals, right? And I do fancy Tottenham Hotspur, I've got to say. I think that they are on this incredible run of home form. If they play badly, Brighton, they win. If they play well, Bournemouth, they win. If they play spectacularly, Newcastle, they win big. I think when you've got Son back, you've got Kulusevski, Richarlison was on a recent goal-scoring run, Brennan Johnson scoring last week. I think Rodrigo Bentancur coming back in midfield is monstrously good news for Tottenham. I think he's the best all-round player at the club. You've got James Maddison ahead of him, creating and bringing that arrogant, cocky swagger that Tottenham need and are kind of well known for. Brilliant. I love watching them. I also love watching Wolves. So goals, goals, goals. Take a Tottenham win. Both teams to score brings you in at 2.75. That's lovely, just under 2-1, but I like it. But I also like here, and this is a bit wild, I do think both teams will probably score in the first half. Look at draw, but look at Tottenham winning games late. Last week, Sheffield United, 1 or 2 others this season. Look at the scores being level at half-time, and that brings you open to 0-0, to 1-1, to whatever in the first half, and that opens up the Tottenham late win. 4.50 for a Tottenham late win with the scores level at half-time. That's really nice, and I'm taking that.
Yeah, or even the draw, for instance. Jobs or Tyson are also highlighting the value on Wolves or on the draw is 4.8 or something like this. So quite high. Hopefully we will see plenty of goals. And also we expect a lot of goals in the next one. It should be an entertaining Saturday in the Premier League because we have Man City, Chelsea in the reverse fixture. We saw many goals in Chelsea's games since they are so bad defensively and they have some quality up front. We are seeing a lot of goals. We saw them even in Selhurst Park 3-1 against Crystal Palace. Also against Aston Villa in the FA Cup is 19 goals in the last 4 games of Chelsea. And of course, it's City. They are cruising. We saw De Bruyne, Foden shining in the Champions League. We saw Haaland missing some chances both in the Premier League and in the Champions League. So usually it's time for Haaland to score plenty of goals, and this could be a good chance in a very good game on Saturday, Tom.
Yeah, terrific game. And the game at Stamford Bridge that you referred to, probably for me the game of the season. Just an extraordinarily brilliant game of football, wrapped up by that Cole Palmer penalty to make it 4-4 in additional time. But this is end of season Man City now. There's the finish line, Man City. This is, do you have a 10-point lead? Oh, you don't? Oh, bad luck, Man City. And I think Grealish got injured in midweek. There's a couple of doubts about one or two others, but Grealish barely plays in the Premier League these days anyway. They have Haaland, they have De Bruyne, they have this incredible squad. How did they afford it? We should look into that. But the squad is terrific. And well, I'm sure it was. Allegation, schmallegation. We'll look into it. But look, they're scoring lots of goals. They're playing really well. I think Erling Haaland's brace last week against Everton was significant. He was on a sort of drought. It's 4 games before that. So him scoring again makes a massive difference. No coincidence. Once he scored one, he scored the second. I think he goes on a bit of a run now, plus Kevin De Bruyne coming back in. I mean, you've just, after a 6-month break, brought in the best player for me in European football. I mean, that's handy. As for Chelsea, I went to the game on Monday against Crystal Palace, and they play some nice stuff. Cole Palmer's a very competent footballer. I think Caicedo's getting a bit better, though nowhere near the money they paid. Very comfortable and confident on the ball, but creating chances, despite the goal-scoring record, and the 3 scored in that game is not their forte. I think it would take the opposition to make mistakes for them to score, as it did for Palace in midweek. And Nkunku not settling in too quickly. Nicholas Jackson still looks like someone out of position playing up front. Something is missing there at Chelsea, which you wouldn't expect for $1 billion spend. And I don't think this will be a 4-4. I don't see Chelsea getting the 4. I can see City getting the 4, the way they've turned things around recently. And it's worth noting too, maybe not too dissimilar to Arsenal West Ham last week, when you take a side from the mid-table seriously, like Arsenal treated West Ham like a title contender, I think if City treat Chelsea in the same way, Chelsea could be in serious, serious trouble here. So I think big City win. I think you've got to look at your handicaps. Cautious. Over 2.5 brings you in at 1.8. A win and over 3.5 brings you in at 2.5. But look at the -2 handicap here. -2.5 handicap. That's a big victory, I know. But I think they'll thrash them. -2.5 brings you in at 3.50 and above. That's pretty decent money for a free-scoring City and a can't-defend Chelsea, who also struggle to score in games. So I think it'll be a comfortable cruise and a fun one for City.
Well, Liverpool thrashed Chelsea a couple of weeks ago, so perhaps it's a similar game. Injuries concern Grealish, and also Bernardo Silva, I think, picked up an injury in that game in Copenhagen. Man City winning every single game is 11 consecutive victories in all competitions. So it's spring Man City, the unstoppable Guardiola machine. And on Sunday, we have a couple of games. Sheffield United, Brighton. And here, Brighton to win. The favorite, of course, is 1.6. Sheffield United got themselves a victory against Luton Town. We said it also last week that the odds to back Luton were very low. Be careful. We didn't expect Sheffield to win that big, but they won it. And we saw this game not long time ago in the FA Cup, and it ended in 5-2 for Brighton. So I guess that's why also we should back Brighton here.
Yeah, I'm fully convinced by the scoreline in the Cup that it's going to be something similar. I think you're right to pick that out. Look, briefly on Sheffield United, we did say last week it was a bit of a banana skin, and I advised not to touch the Luton-Sheffield United game. I gave you some odds, and I went for Luton, as everyone in their right mind would have done, because you can't put money on Sheffield United, but it was evidently a banana skin for Luton, which they slipped right over. Though I will say, 2 penalties given last week in that game. Moronic decisions. The second goal for Sheffield United, which changes everything. I mean, it was Reece Burke, I think, of Luton. He's not even looking, and it hits his arm from 2 feet away. It was just embarrassing it was given. To be fair, as was Luton's penalty, but whatever. Look, in terms of Sheffield United, lots of players out right now. Gustavo Harmer, Ben Brereton Diaz, Oli McBurney, Gurubich, the goalkeeper, likely to not play. So Foderingham will continue in goal, which ain't great news for him. And despite that performance last week, I can't see anything here. I know they put up a good fight against West Ham recently, but again, we keep going on it about West Ham. They don't make forward passes. They're not a brave team right now. And if you're a brave team who try and get forward against this diabolical defence and terrible goalkeeper, you're going to score goals. And Brighton are scoring goals again after a bit of a bad time before this little break. Did score 4 against Crystal Palace. Of course, a couple of 0-0s before the break before that, but got one against Tottenham too. I think they're going to start scoring goals more and more and more as the season comes towards its climax. So I'm going to take Brighton here to win, because you can't ever put money on Sheffield United. Brighton to win is no money. I think it's going to be similar to the Aston Villa game. That was 5-0. I'm not that confident, but a -1 handicap brings you in at 2.63. So if you're going to go anyone here, this might be a good one to put in a wide accumulator. But a -1 handicap, that's okay.
Well, the both teams to score is 1.6 that many people are backing. Brighton is the best team in both teams to score in the Premier League. 20 out of the 25 games or 24 games that they've played ended in both teams to score. So that's why the odds are pretty low for that particular market. And also on Sunday, we have Luton Town, Man United. Luton Town is still out of the relegation zone, but it was a big blow, that defeat against Sheffield United. As you mentioned, Tom, we said it. Be careful and do not touch Luton Town to win at those odds. Man United to win here, on the other hand, is 1.8. They are delivering lately. They are even in the fight to finish in the top 4. Finalists 4 consecutive wins in all competitions. Højlund is scoring, so perhaps this 1.8 is good enough.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Luton Town at home this season have put up a great fight in a lot of games, but they have lost 7 of their 12 matches and only picked up 3 victories. They've lost close encounters to the big name teams, Chelsea and City and Liverpool and West Ham and Arsenal. Lost all those games by like 1 goal. So they put up a great fight, but did lose them all. And I think they'll lose again here. I think that last week was a shock for them. I think that defensively they got found out. I think there was the first time they felt a feeling of confidence about a game of football, and they totally blew it. And it's going to be real tough to come back from. Man United have got better. They really, really have. I think they were very good in the first half against Aston Villa. That was probably their best 45 minutes of the season. I think they were good in the second half as well, but not as good as the first. I think they had some good moments against West Ham the previous week. Now, the 3-0 scoreline maybe flattered them a little bit. West Ham should have scored a couple in that game. But look, they're getting results now. I think Lisandro Martinez being out again is a big blow, but offensively, Rasmus Højlund scoring goals is what has been missing for Man United. The striker scoring. The difference between this season and last season for Man United is Marcus Rashford scored a bunch of goals last year. This season, he didn't scored much. And that's the difference. And now Højlund scoring, they started winning. There's no way of knowing. Football's easy, really. I think a lot of United games away from home have been quite tight this season when they have won. I keep going back to the Fulham game earlier in the campaign, a total dirge to watch. But even the Aston Villa game, 1-2. The Wolves game, 3-4. Loss against Forest, 2-1. Loss against West Ham, 2-0. So pretty tight. They're not overpowering opponents. I think they won't overpower Luton here. Not many have, but they will win. So Man U to win on its own, not good enough for me, that. Man United to win and under 2.5 goals in this match. That's a 1-0 or 2-0 victory for Man United. I was astonished to find this at 5.5. Astonished to find that. That is a 1-0 or a 2-0 victory. It opens it up broadly. You can also look at your group bet here of 1-0, 2-0, 2-1, but that's under 5.5. That was about 4 this morning. That is so long, I couldn't believe it, so I'm taking it.
Jobs is telling us also Højlund to score or assist. As I mentioned before, he's hitting the net lately. Angel is going for the over in this game. It's a good one. Luton Town, Man United, and if Luton lose and Everton win on Monday, they will drop into the bottom 3. This is a massive game on Monday, Everton Crystal Palace, for the relegation battle, because if Everton win, as I said, Luton or Forest will be in danger, and also Crystal Palace will be in the relegation mix. Very, very favorite of Everton to win, 1.8. I wouldn't touch these odds, very low.
Absolutely. That's not worth your time. 3 victories at home this season, 1 point, 2 points in the last 3 games, 2 draws, 1 defeat. 1.8? What? Wild, really. That is wild. I actually thought, I sent this over yesterday when I was doing the odds. I thought this would come up. I was expecting to see 2.3 this morning. So I'm astonished to see this 1.8. And I think I'll withdraw my top tip here as Everton win because I thought it would come up. But look, I do think Everton are favourites. I understand that completely. I think Palace, as I mentioned, I watched them on Monday. No Eze, no Elise. I thought França was okay. I thought he looks like a decent championship player. Not ready for the Premier League yet, but I was impressed by his kind of endeavour. I thought the front three worked for Palace. I think the new signings sort of worked. And in January, they have improved their squad. No one else really did. So, kudos to Palace for doing that. But I still don't think they have brought in a huge improvement on what is unavailable to them. They're just covered for what's available or unavailable right now. So with Everton, the issue is Calvert-Lewin's not scoring. He's not scoring goals. They need the striker to score goals. And without that, they aren't going to stay in the Premier League. They have understandably put a lot of faith in Dominic Calvert-Lewin because, frankly, they couldn't afford to buy anybody else because FFP has screwed them hugely this season. And he's got a long time now without a goal. Beto, the other striker, is a donkey. No good. Doesn't deserve to be in the Premier League. Just a big, hulking nonsense player. Sometimes the ball might go in off his backside or something, but, not good enough to be a Premier League striker. But that's the pool that they are swimming in, Everton. And that's why Calvert-Lewin being fit is so vital to them. It's going to be really narrow, this. These are not high goal-scoring teams. At home this season, Everton have scored just 13 goals. Away from home, Crystal Palace, 12 goals scored. So that's an average of 1 goal per game for both teams. Nowhere near good enough. So I think it's going to be really, really narrow, this. And in fact, I can see it being a draw up until the late stages. Now, you remember when Frank Lampard was in charge, Everton stayed up on the strength of beating Crystal Palace. Richarlison inspired them in a really thrilling game at the back end of that season. I don't see it being thrilling, but I do see it being as significant. Look at the draw at half-time. Tight, cagey, cautious, really tough to watch, but Everton win the second half. You take that, it brings you in at 4.5. What a jump from this nonsense 1.8 up to 4.5. You can also take a group bet here. I love a group bet, as you know. 1-0, 2-0, 2-1. Bundle them together, 2.63.
Low scoring game, I guess. Under 2 goals could be a good idea. For Angel, this is an Everton win or a draw. Correct score 1-0. This is very likely for Everton. They need a victory to stay away and to leave the bottom 3 area. Well, and this is over for match day 25, but Tom is very generous. And since we have a couple of games next week on Tuesday and Wednesday before the Champions League games, Tom, just a word on this Man City Brentford. I checked, for instance, the both teams to score here is 2.0, following what we've said in this show, that Brentford scored plenty of goals. And Man City, we all know their quality.
Yes, I mean, look, I think that you got to look at Man City win. Obviously, you do. I went to the game a couple of weeks ago at the G-Tech, and if it wasn't for Flecken making multiple saves in the first half, it could have been 10-0 to Manchester City in that first half. And the goal was taken really well by Neil Maupay, but it was just a blast upfield, and Maupay got through and scored it. It was really impressive. But beyond that, Brentford didn't really create a chance. So I'm going to follow the pattern of the previous game, but take away the Maupay goal. That was 3-1. I think you're looking at least 2-0 here to Manchester City. The only variable is Pep Roulette. Between Champions League games, just had the Chelsea game, throwing in another one here. I do think there's a possibility of 6, 7, 8 changes for City, but take them to win comfortably. Look at least -1 handicap. I'll take a -2. That'll just about bring you under 2-1. That's the best we can do.
And the title race keeps going on Wednesday with Liverpool playing at home against Luton Town. Remember that Arsenal is playing in Porto in the Champions League in the following week. Tom, of course, Liverpool to win, it does not worth your time. It's only 1.19, the highest odds. This is the kind of game for the Asian handicap for the Reds.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm hoping for Liverpool's sake that Mo Salah has returned. They're talking about maybe this weekend, but I'd expect Wednesday or next weekend he will be back in the team. And Salah scoring makes a big difference. I know they have so many brilliant offensive players, but Mo Salah is the guy you put in your world-class 11. And if you've got that guy, he makes a massive, massive difference. If it gets sticky, he will find a goal for them. Luton away from home this season have not been good enough, as they haven't been at home as well. 2 victories on the road, one in the last 5. They have made a fight of things as they keep on doing, but have been incapable of winning. I think it's going to be very similar to a game you've seen so many times in the Jurgen Klopp era. They struggle in the opening 10. Look at the Burnley game. They concede a stupid goal in some way, thanks to a mistake by Alisson or Van Dijk or something. Then 10 minutes happen. They're 1-0 down. They switch on. They go on to win it. So I actually quite fancy both teams to score here, only because I've seen this game for Liverpool so many times. Liverpool win and both teams to score brings in at really, really good odds here. And then look at your Asian handicap. But be cautious. I do think Luton will score 1, so I might be looking at just -1 here. Not amazing odds for that, but I think that's what's going to happen.
Well, Liverpool struggled earlier in the season in Luton, so this is a game of the following match day, actually, but they've anticipated the game, and it's on Wednesday. Well, Tom, this is it, of course, so many games in this show. Among them all, which one is your safe bet?
Safe bet this week is Liverpool to win at Brentford. Brentford struggling right now for results. They have struggled against the big teams this season. I think the win against Wolverhampton Wanderers last week was a bit of an outlier, and Liverpool are on form. So Liverpool to win at Brentford.
And the ACCA?
3-team ACCA, which includes Liverpool winning at Brentford. I'll take Arsenal to win their game too. Really impressive against West Ham. I think they'll repeat the trick against Burnley and win comfortably. And throw in Newcastle against Bournemouth there as well. I know Newcastle has struggled the last few weeks at home, but across the season, they have been brilliant at St. James's Park. And it brings you in at 4.19. That's really good.
Not bad at all. Thank you, Tom Rennie. Hello to Mohammed from Somalia, watching us from Somalia. Goodbye, Tom. It's been a pleasure, as always. Have fun. Bye-bye. Tom.